everybody. It's Lenny Murphy with another edition of our CEO series of interviews. And today I am joined by truly a legend in our industry, Diane Hessan. Diane, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Len. I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. It is
Nice to be here. Hi, everybody.
So you are a legend, and you have so many titles, so many things. We would if I tried to do it, it would take like 10 minutes to fill all it up. So I bet you have a more condensed version. So let's just jump in. Tell the audience who may not be familiar with you, who you are, what you do, kind of your origin story, and then we will go from there.
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. Remind me if I don't say anything about this when I kind of give you a bit of an origin story, but it's a huge compliment for you to say that I'm a legend. So I'll come back to that and tell you why, because it's probably not what you think. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, for which I am very grateful, because now in my elite bubble that I live in, it is great to still go back to my roots a lot, because my passion in life is really about understanding people who are different from me. And in the beginning of my career, when I got out of business school, I worked in marketing at General Foods. That was my first, job where I had like a W-2 form as opposed to a 1099. General Foods was a big food company. It was eventually sold to Kraft. And I went in there, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And they said to me, Diane, what product do you want to work on? I mean, you can work, we have stovetop stuffing, Pebbles cereal, Bird's Eye frozen peas, Gaines burgers, Country Time lemonade. And they had all these things. And I was coming in and I just said, look, play me wherever you need me. I'm really flexible, but do me a favor. Just put me on a product that I understand.
Okay.
And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, don't put me on decaffeinated coffee because I don't get it. Why would anybody drink something that tastes bad if it doesn't deliver the primary benefit? And in their infinite wisdom, General Foods put me on Brim decaffeinated coffee. And that was the beginning of my market research career. It was the beginning of my journey to say, who are these people and what can I learn about them that would help me figure out how to sell more stuff to them. I moved on and on. I was in a training and development company for a while where I spent a big chunk of my early career. Training and development was a new arena. I got into that business. I left General Foods to move to Boston because of a guy. He wasn't necessarily the reason to move, but I loved working in this training and development company. And I had every job. I was in sales, and then I ran the sales organization. I was in marketing. I did strategic alliances. I did global operations, and just picked up a lot of skills there. And I left in 2000 to start my own company, which ended up being Communispace, which was the first company to, really leverage the internet to create online communities.
Yep.
I don't know if you're the person. I remember at the time, somebody, I thought it was you, ended up calling them MROCs, Market Research Online Community, which was an absolutely horrible name.
That was Gartner. It was Gartner or Forrester, one of them. Yes, and thank
one
God
of those.
It didn't stay that long.
And Communispace was 4 years of hell, and then a decade or more of glory. I mean, in the beginning, it was so hard. It was hard because we were a startup and didn't have a lot of cash. It was hard because I really was a stranger to the industry. And I think there are a lot of people out there now trying to get in and thinking that they can sell their stuff to our clients without really embracing what's currently there, the language, the associations, the people, everything else. Then, ultimately, we figured it out, and we ended up working with a couple of initial clients that absolutely loved what we were doing. And all of a sudden we had 400 clients and 700 employees. And, we were, now the company is in, a zillion different countries and all of that. So, and then in the next phase of my career, I've had more of a portfolio life, serving on corporate boards, kind of investing in helping the next generation of startups in tech. And I also parlayed my love of market research into the political arena, where I've been in conversation with a panel of 500 voters since 2016.
Uh,
And in terms of the legend thing,
Ah.
I alluded to this a little bit, Len, but when I first came into the industry, we had an idea that was basically based on the fact that, in the year 2000, if you are right now between the ages of maybe 32, 33 and 103, your first experience with community on the web was America Online. And a lot of people who are watching this will remember, like, we'd get floppy disks in the mail and we'd get on AOL and
Yep.
you'd be in chat rooms and you'd do instant messaging. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And we were convinced that we could apply community to companies for serious business purposes. And although I had a lot of marketing jobs, I did not know the market research industry. I just knew that listening to consumers was an incredible underrated marketing strategy. And so I started dabbling in the industry, but people started saying things to me like, you should go to an ARF conference. And I would say, what's ARF? And somebody would say to me, well, would you ever use this? Would you ever use your technology instead of a tracker? And I'd say, what's a tracker? Like, I didn't know that. And I hired people who were from the industry to teach me. And just like I hired tech people who would teach me to learn to code, I had a lot of people mentoring me and helping me really understand the industry, which I thought was critical to earn the right to be in it. And so when you say I'm a legend, it's such a compliment, because I remember 20 years ago, I'd be making a presentation at a conference like yours, and people would stand up and go, you don't even get this business. Like, this isn't research. I mean, you can't ask a question to somebody and then the following week go back to the same person, where this isn't statistically significant. I mean, we were breaking so many rules at the time, which of course have been broken a lot now. And so I love feeling like, I love feeling like I'm a part of the traditional industry.
Yep. We first met, probably 2010, maybe. Around then. So I think you were just beginning to kind of prove, wait.
Yeah, 2010 was a good year.
Yeah. Was that the year that Stan got behind you and said, all right, your time to go global? I've heard that story.
That story? No, that was much later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was that was maybe 2 years later or whatever. Yeah.
The point was you were
and Stan Stanathan, who at the time was the head of insights at Coca-Cola, and many of you who are listening probably know him as the guy who eventually went to Unilever to run all of that globally.
Yes, and just helped to drive innovation across the board, and you were one of those examples, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, right? Because you that backstory of not coming from the industry, seeing an opportunity to deploy technology in a new way to address different types of business issues. I think we're in that point now again, primarily driven by kind of AI, and it opens up the door for all these new things that we hadn't thought about before, and there's lots of new people entering the market and then trying to learn the language, and who do we talk to and how does this work? So and you are definitely an example of someone who just you did it. You took that ride, and you took the hits, but also eventually reap the benefits. And because nobody would think of Communispace or C-Space, as it's now called, not knowing that that's not just a traditional research company, because you've been so embedded into the ecosystem for so long now. But at the time, you were having a hard time giving it away, right, when you first started. So
oh my gosh, we were begging people, and to the extent that there are people who are listening who are trying to do that kind of thing now. I mean, I got to the point where I had a sales pitch that worked, and not a pitch, but I would basically, I didn't know a lot about tech, even though I was running a tech company, but I had had a lot of sales experience, and I would get myself into the office of somebody important. And I'd just say, look, my company's doing something that is really, really exciting. We're looking for people who want to go on a journey with us, who really want to have an adventure. And if they do that, we're going to give them all kinds of air cover. But I just want you to know, I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but it might not be for you. Sometimes people just don't have the stomach for this.
Yeah.
And there were people who would say, whoa, this sounds really, really great. And I'm not sure I can sell it, or whatever else. But there were other people who were saying, let's go. Let's go. Let's give it a shot. And yeah.
That's very cool. So through this career, you've learned a lot, right? And I think we're already kind of in this place now of trying to condense this into the new generation. So what bestow your wisdom upon us, Diane? What are some kind of the key lessons that you have learned along the way that if you're mentoring, a CEO of an early stage company or whatever,
okay,
what would that be? What are some of those key lessons?
Okay, for people who are kind of doing early stage companies, I guess there are a few things I'd say. Number one, I think people fall in love with their tech. They fall in love with the magic of their product.
Yes,
And
their baby.
What's that?
Their baby, right? It's like, oh, this is my baby, and it's the best looking baby ever. So,
yeah. And sometimes you forget that your client doesn't really know if it's they're just trying to accomplish something. And we can come back later to what I think people are trying to accomplish. But I think that if you are totally geeking out on your product, you've got to kind of sit back and say, whoa, what are we really trying to accomplish here? I mean, I can give you 1,000 examples here, but I literally remember, and this is when things were going really well and we were doubling in size every year. It was the summer of, I think, 2008. And I just thought, at the time, we had maybe 50 clients. I mean, we had a lot of early clients. They were all large Fortune 500 type companies. I used to say to people, we have 400 clients. And if you looked at all the logos, you'd know every single one of them. And I decided to travel and see a bunch of clients over the summer. And I went and saw 50 clients.
Wow.
So, I remember I went down south, I went to Hilton, and I had with me a document. Somebody created for me a whole document. They had gone through the entire Hilton community and highlighted for me different things that were going on in there so that I could say to the client, look at this. This is so interesting. This whole group of people never leave their hotel room and da, 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 da. But the thing that amazed me was I had so much fun going into the communities with all these clients. None of these clients ever went into their community. So there we are. They have a URL. The thing is gorgeous. There are consumers in there all the time, talking, saying things to each other, answering surveys, posting pictures, doing whatever else. The clients were too busy. They didn't have time to actually use our technology. And so, what we would do is we would summarize what was going on in the community sent to clients, but it was like a 3-page ugly Word document. So I went back after that trip and I said to our CFO, we need a printer, right? I mean, we need to create absolutely gorgeous documents. This is, of course, 15 years ago. So that instead of having great stuff going on with our tech that clients aren't seeing, and then something super unsexy that we're actually delivering to them, we need to make the assumption they have no idea what's going on in the community. And instead, let's give them something so that the CMO says, what's that? And they're walking down the hallway, hugging their report on, back to school shopping, or whatever it is. So we realized that although we were a tech company, we had to really transform what we were delivering to clients because that's what they valued. And, you always think that the big questions we would get all the time, I used to think the big questions were going to be, how do I know this is valid? And how do I know this is representative? Because that's what everybody in the industry was saying to me.
Right.
The clients were saying things like, if I do this, do I need to have a whole full-time person working on this community? It was their biggest question.
Sure.
They didn't care what kind of technology platform we had. They didn't care how many lines of code I had, just any of the stuff. So what tech people worried about was different. What market research industry people worried about was different. But the clients were saying, I don't know if I have enough staff to run this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things, it's just, and so what happens is, know that you'll probably pivot. That your first, even if your technology is the same, know that your first idea will probably end up not being what you offer, and be ready for that. So you got to love what you're doing because you're doing it 24/7. And yet at the same time, you have to say, what will this become? And what is this? If I'm walking in the client's shoes, how is the experience of what I'm offering completely different from the way that I'm seeing it? And I think going through that and having clients who will coach you through that makes a really big difference.
That is wonderful advice. I see it all the time. We're doing this cool tech. Like, okay, what's the business issue that you're solving? Right.
Yes.
So it's ultimately that is what the client is, a different set of priorities. So totally agree.
Yeah. And look, and then everybody says, listen to your clients, but I think it's more like have your clients coach you, ask them questions. Like, I know you really like this. How do you describe this? How do you describe this online community in your organization? Oh, well, I do something totally, I don't call it what you guys call it because you guys are too fancy for me. Here's what I say. I say focus group on steroids. I'm like, focus group on steroids. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. And we started using that. Or I remember that, and I got that from Tom Brailsford at Hallmark. Then we had another client at
Tom was a good guy.
A great guy. Yeah. He was our first client. So I always call him our founder. Okay. And then we had a client at Kraft named Gretchen Waitley. And Kraft loved what we were doing. And one day she calls me on the phone and she says, okay, I have to tell you why your product is going to work. I said, okay. She says, I was just in a focus group session and there we all are. We're behind the one-way mirror. We're watching all of these people. We're eating our M&Ms. And one of my colleagues is leaning on the light switch, like this. And his arm went like that. And our lights went on. And all the people in the focus group turned around to look at us. And we hit the floor.
Duck.
She said, duck. And she said, that is the state of the industry in 2004 or whatever the time was. She said, we are so detached from our respondents that not only are we not having direct conversations with them, but when they know we are there, we are hiding from them. And that's the transformation that you can take people through. So, I mean, I'm telling you, as I said before, I can give you 100 stories like that, but those are gold.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So as we kind of glide into the landing pad here, you have a much broader perspective now, right? You said you have a portfolio, you're involved in lots of different types of companies doing different things, as well as, tapped into the political thing, which, by the way, do you remember the last time we saw each other was at IAX in 2016 when you and I sat up on stage to talk about the results of the 2016
election. I do remember that. Yeah.
And folks were terrified of what? You're talking about politics? And, no, we weren't talking about politics. We're talking about understanding people. So I cherish that memory, by the way.
And I'm so boring. I am still talking to 500 voters every Tuesday.
I have followed along.
Trying to see what's going on with them and their lives and how they're thinking about the world. It's just totally fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. So just so you've imparted wisdom. Now we think about this period of change that we are in at all levels. What's your take? Where do you think, if you're trying to suggest, here's what you should focus on over the course of the next 2 years during all of these different technological disruption, business disruption, political disruption, et cetera, what does that look like for you?
You mean what do I think is going to happen, or
well, you certainly interested in that, but probably more along the lines of what's important to focus on during periods of change, with your take on specifically in this period of change. Here's what you're focusing on.
Okay. So in terms of the research space, I think, because especially with AI and just everything that's happening, I think we have to balance. Look, quality is table stakes.
Yep.
You have shit respondents, right? You have a methodology that doesn't work. Like, see ya, it's not going to work. But assuming that you have quality, there are 3 things we got to balance: speed of insights, depth of insights, and relevance to the business. So the speed is breathtaking these days, and we're able to find things out really fast and relatively inexpensively. It's just staggering, even compared to a year ago. Depth is that sometimes we get fast information that doesn't tell us much more than we already know. So, with consumer behaviors shifting all the time, being able, think about your client saying, tell me something I don't know. Tell me something I don't know. They don't want just obvious stuff fast. So depth of insight matters a lot. And I think it's hard work to do that because it requires understanding the client's business. And then, of course, the third one is that what we are learning and what we are communicating, what clients are seeing, has to be relevant, has to be connected to the priorities of our organizations. And getting all 3 of these, to me, is the holy grail. And that you're doing well when the client is asking you to work on their very biggest issues. I mean, client says, do I want a red package or a blue package? Well, that's nice. You can tell them now in 15 minutes, based on, 10,000 people, go with the red. Right. But that's not what nourishes you, right? As a leader, what nourishes you are having an opportunity to work on things that are really transformative for businesses, that really change the game. And sometimes it's geeky, researchy things. I mean, sometimes it's just, I know you've been focused on demographics forever, like women versus men, or this versus that, or this versus that, but you should think about the world differently. And boards are interested in that and everything. But I think sometimes we get, you got to have all 3. How do you do that? Because fast alone is, a year from now, everybody will be fast.
Yep.
Right? We were really fast. We could get people within 24 hours answers to questions, and people thought that was miraculous. Now it would be boring. No one would even say, nobody even says anymore, how long is it going to take you to get that information? They assume it's fast. But is it interesting? Do you get the what and the why behind what's happening? And is it something that even matters to the business? Or are you working with a client that doesn't know their business that well? And so we're all sitting here, in this rabbit hole talking about stuff that nobody really cares about. So I think balancing all that matters. And the way that you do that is related to your team, and your people, which I didn't talk a lot about, but, it is ultimately all about your team. And although you can have technical people who are really geeky, you got to have people who kind of help you get out of that and say, what are we really doing for this client that is going to make a significant difference? Where's the case study? Where's the use case in here where ultimately we can have a client say, you know what, I really wanted to work with those people because here's the story of how they changed everything.
Yeah, very cool. Diane, let's not go 10 years, damn near 10 years without talking again. because this was fantastic. Congratulations on all your success. And
You too.
and I will look forward to talking to you again soon. And really, thank you for sharing your experience and wisdom with our audience. Guys, this really was a privilege. So I hope that you got a lot out of this. I certainly did.
Thank you.
All right, Diane, take care. Have a great weekend since we're talking on a Friday, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you.